Taiwan's status, it's one of the most dangerous flashpoints on the planet. But behind all the military drills and the diplomatic warnings, there's a really basic question that just gets lost in the noise. Is Taiwan's status a settled legal fact, or is it still an open question? In this explainer, we're going to cut right through the politics, follow the evidence, and find the answer. So let's just start with that central question, right? Is Taiwan's international status already decided? You hear this claim all the time, but what does the law actually say? We're going to put that claim to the test. Okay, let's dive in with the most definitive statement you can find, and this comes straight from Beijing. This is the heart of their position, that Taiwan is part of China, always has been, always will be. So this is the puzzle we're here to solve. Does the legal and historical record actually back this up? To figure that out, we're going to follow a really clear 6-step investigation. First, we'll get our legal terms straight. Then we'll follow the paper trail of key treaties. We'll decode the single most important UN resolution on this, apply the international law test for what makes a state, and then finally weigh all the evidence to get to a clear verdict. Look, before we can even start looking at evidence, we have to build our legal toolkit. In this debate, a lot of key legal ideas get blurred together, and honestly, that's often done on purpose. So let's just quickly and clearly define the terms we're going to be working with. First up, sovereignty. Just think of it as the ultimate power. It's the supreme authority a state has over its own territory and its own people, completely free from outside control. This is really the ultimate prize in the whole Taiwan debate. Next is statehood. Now, this isn't some vague idea. International law actually has a very clear 4-part test for this from something called the Montevideo Convention. To be a state, you need 4 things: a population, a territory, a government, and the ability to interact with other states. It's a pretty practical checklist. And this brings us to a really, really crucial distinction: the difference between a state and a government. The state is the permanent thing, the country itself. The government is just the group of people in charge at any given time. This is so key because governments can change, they can be overthrown, they can even flee, just like the Republic of China's government did in 1949. But the state itself doesn't legally just disappear. The state can continue. And finally, recognition. This is where the politics really kicks into high gear. Recognition is just when one country decides to officially say, yep, we see you as a state, but, and this is a big but, under what's called the Declaratory Theory of international law, if an entity meets those 4 criteria for statehood we just talked about, it is a state, whether other countries choose to recognize it or not. Recognition is a political choice. It doesn't legally create or destroy a state. So this is where you see all these legal ideas play out in the real world. You've almost certainly heard of the One China idea, but it is absolutely critical to know that there are 2 very different versions. Beijing's One China principle is a rigid, non-negotiable claim of sovereignty. But the One China policy of countries like the United States, well, it's way more ambiguous. The U.S. just acknowledges Beijing's position. It doesn't accept it, it doesn't endorse it. This is a very deliberate diplomatic dance to avoid making a final legal call on Taiwan's sovereignty. All right, with our legal toolkit ready to go, we can now become historical detectives. Let's follow the paper trail and look at the actual documents that have shaped Taiwan's legal status over the years. Okay, our story starts way back in 1895, when China legally gave Taiwan to Japan forever. Now let's fast forward to World War II. The Cairo and Potsdam Declarations. You hear about these a lot. They stated the Allies' intention to give Taiwan back to the Republic of China after the war. But here's the thing. These were wartime political statements, not legally binding treaties. The document that truly matters, the one with legal teeth, comes in 1952, the San Francisco Peace Treaty. And here it is. This is the key text from Article 2 of that treaty. It's about as direct as it gets. Japan gives up all right, title, and claim to Taiwan. It renounces them. Full stop. But here's the billion-dollar question, or, omission. The treaty has Japan give up its claim, but it deliberately, and I mean deliberately, never says who gets sovereignty over Taiwan. It doesn't give it to the Republic of China. It doesn't give it to the People's Republic of China. It just leaves Taiwan's sovereignty legally hanging. It's undetermined. This is probably the single most important fact in the entire treaty record. So if the peace treaty left Taiwan's status open, where does this whole idea that it's already decided even come from? Well, a huge part of it hinges on how you interpret a single UN resolution, what a lot of people see as the smoking gun in this whole case. First, just a little context so we're all on the same page. The Chinese Civil War ends in 1949. Mao's communists create the People's Republic of China on the mainland. The government they defeated, the Republic of China, flees to Taiwan. For decades after that, both of these governments claimed to be the one true government of all of China. And this right here leads to the great misunderstanding. The common story, which Beijing pushes really hard, is that UN Resolution 2758 settled the Taiwan issue once and for all. But the legal reality? It's much, much narrower. The resolution didn't say a single word about sovereignty or territory. It only answered one question: who gets to represent the member state called China at the UN? And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. Just look at the text yourself. The resolution decides to restore rights to the People's Republic of China and expel the representatives of Chiang Kai-shek, who was the leader of the ROC. The words Taiwan, sovereignty, territory, they're just not in there. It was a decision about who gets the seat, not who owns the land. So we've seen that the historical treaties left Taiwan's sovereignty up in the air, and UN 2758 didn't settle it either. That brings us to today. If we want to know Taiwan's status right now, we have to apply that standard legal test for statehood to the reality on the ground. Remember that 4-part checklist from the Montevideo Convention? Let's apply it to the Republic of China on Taiwan. Does it have a permanent population? Yep, 23 million people. A defined territory? Yep, the island of Taiwan, Penghu, and others. An effective government? For sure. A stable, democratically elected one. And the capacity to conduct foreign relations? Absolutely. It signs treaties, it has massive trade, and it maintains relations all over the world. By the textbook definition, it ticks every single box. And this brings us right back to that crucial legal idea we talked about earlier. The fact that the ROC on Taiwan meets all these criteria means that, under the declarative theory of international law, it has statehood. The lack of widespread formal recognition definitely makes things difficult on the world stage, but it does not legally erase its existence as a state. Okay, we've looked at the definitions, the treaties, the big UN resolution, and the legal test for statehood. It's time to bring all these threads together and deliver a verdict on that question we started with. Now, just to be fair, let's quickly lay out Beijing's position one more time. Their argument is really based on those wartime declarations of Cairo and Potsdam. They point to the fact that most countries in the world recognize the PRC as the government of China, and they insist that UN Resolution 2758 basically closed the book on the whole matter. But now let's weigh that against the evidence we've just walked through. The binding peace treaty explicitly left sovereignty undetermined. The key UN resolution was about who gets the China seat, not who owns Taiwan. The Republic of China as a state never legally ceased to exist. Its government just moved and kept on governing. And today, that state meets every single legal requirement for statehood. So here's the verdict, the most important takeaway. The question isn't whether Taiwan should become independent. The legal evidence strongly suggests it already is a state. Its status as the Republic of China never actually ended. What we are all watching is not a debate over some rebellious province trying to break away. It's a political and military dispute over an existing state that just happens to be largely unrecognized. The pressure on Taiwan is all about raw geopolitics and power, but that pressure doesn't and can't change the underlying legal reality.